This is day 6 of the July 92 7-day retreat at Springwater. I looked through previous questions whether we had left out any, and there is the one about what is the role of precepts in our lives, precepts or commandments. It came up again in a meeting. So shall we look at that? What is the role of precepts? Do we take precepts? Have we taken the commandments? Christian, Judeo commandments, or whatever religion one may belong to, and each one has its own set of precepts. Actually, the 1 year that I was in charge at the Zen Center, the day of precept taking fell into that year, and I had to also administer the precepts, or however this was called. I looked around for precepts of other Zen centers, whether there were differences, and I found there were considerable differences, even within the Zen community. Finally ended up with using the precepts of Thich Nhat Hanh. They felt to me the broadest, starting right off with, see now I forget, but something like not just to insist that one's own religion is the only religion, not to try to enforce it upon others, not to try to impress it on children, and so forth. Also staying in 2 different Buddhist communities in England where we held retreat, the question came up because there the precepts seemed to loom quite large. In the one community, every Monday they were read. And in the retreats, people asked about, do you have precepts? Do you give precepts? What is the function of precepts? At the time when that day came where the precepts had to be given at the center, a talk preceded that, talk about the precepts. I was saying something like, do these precepts that we're about to take and say and vow become standards, ideal standards toward which we aspire, wanting to become like that, or at least endeavoring to, in all of our falling back, always endeavoring to reach that lofty standard that the precept sets. For instance, one of them is not to become angry. I could never understand how this could be made into a precept and yet understand something of anger in oneself. So is this how one uses the precepts, as yet another standard to aspire toward? Or hearing it, looking at oneself, is the precept rather like a light shining on how we are, illuminating what it is that is actually going on? Then it can be of some usefulness. And yet it is a precept, the form is a precept. I vow to, or thou shalt not, or thou shalt. How can one get away with comparing how I am and how I should be? And since precepts are always, or commandments, given in a lofty setting, incense burning, an altar, a god involved, or someone more lofty than oneself, supposedly. Administering them. The organism, the mind takes in not just the words, it takes in the whole context, the pictures, the iconography. And it doesn't just become a simple thing to look, how am I doing? What is going on in myself right now? But it becomes associated with standards of perfection. There's a question in here later about perfection. We'll come to that. Standards of how I should be. And if one has observed oneself at all, or is beginning to do it, one will find for oneself that any time the thought is there, I should be like this, I should be like that, one can't look at what one really is. What is really happening right now cannot be observed innocently, as it were, openly, non-judgmentally. If a precept or a commandment looms in the background, in Buddhism you're told, well, the precepts are about a fully enlightened person, and of course this is not a pressure, but all kinds of... See, we give these things and then we start making rationalizations. And the mind does that very ingeniously. It has learned that since it's learned to think and talk, to begin to rationalize why I'm the way I am and not the way I should be. But also, any kind of excuse or rationalization does not aid in looking clearly, unimpededly, allowing to come into view what is going on in ourselves, non-judgmentally. And that's the crux of this whole work, of being aware without judgment. And is that possible when we've already taken repeatedly precepts, been given repeatedly commandments? One of the places where we had retreat, they were posted on a bulletin board. Then if you live together as a community, is there the likelihood or the potential for becoming hypocritical, trying to pretend to oneself and each other that one is law-abiding, precept-abiding? It's posted right out there. Whereas what I'm interested in is how can we come to be as we are and be straightforward about it, at least to ourselves. May not reveal everything that goes on in thought to everybody else. If one sees it clearly oneself, that may be enough. Under certain circumstances, under others, it's good to tell somebody how one felt when one said this or did this or what was going on. But to see for oneself, it needs no impediments, and sometimes precepts can be strong impediments to looking. And inducements to become facade. Because in the mind associated is punishment or karma, reaping bad karma. If I don't do this the way it should be. Usually in the confession and repentance that was going on also in connection with the precepts, people were saying, talking about confessing their transgressions. The person who started out said, I've transgressed during the past year every single precept. It was pretty straightforward. Is that then a relief, and then so one goes on? We had a group meeting here once. We had a retreat without me giving any talk, so we just met as a group instead of having individual or small group meetings. And a man from Germany, he'd been brought up in the Catholic Church, and some of us were very interested to hear from him how he experienced confession. And somebody asked, how long did this last, this resolution not to do, and the relief from being absolved and the resolution not to do it again? And he said, as long as I was in the booth. In school we learned in religion, a religion course there. We had to take that in the beginning. Later on it was done away with in Germany. And we learned about how at the time, before the time of the revolution, of Luther having his revolution against the Catholic Church, one could buy absolution for money for future transgressions already. And the rhyme, the verse that was put onto this box, this collection box, in which one dropped the money, the rhyme on it said, as soon as the coin tingles in the box, the soul jumps from purgatory to heaven. So the mind, ingenious at creating precepts, is also ingenious at creating ways out of them. We all know that. I'm not pointing a finger at any particular church or religion. We do it even when we have no religion or precepts. We rationalize what we're doing in order not to really face it, have an excuse for it. And why? Why? We're afraid. If children were never made afraid, would never have to fear the consequences of their actions, which is very hypothetical, probably impossible, would they ever tell lies or be afraid to say what's so? They're afraid to say because they're afraid of punishment, loss of love, being ostracized or violated in some way with angry words. So then lies are invented. I didn't do this, he did. Is it possible to see oneself or someone else without any judgment? I would like that to happen. I do want that to happen. Does this now mean it becomes a goal for me, which I will strive to attain? It fits in nicely with this, what we just talked about, doesn't it? Is it possible to see oneself and each other without immediately judging? Right, wrong, good, bad, like it, don't like it. Not to skim over a question like this, give it an answer, or say it's impossible, oh yeah, maybe after 10 years of meditation it'll be possible. That's not allowing this question to sink in, to be there, to operate in oneself. One will find that judgment seems almost inextricably linked to perception. That's why we asked in the beginning, is it possible to hear, feel, touch, see, perceive something with the mind being quiet, still, not in its normal, habitual mode of immediately categorizing into what it is and whether it is what I like or not like, whether it's good or bad according to all the precepts I've taken, commandments and all the other stuff that has molded this mind into a judge, a reactor. We talked about it. It came up in a group discussion. We talked about it, looked at it. It is possible to see judgment after it has come up. And maybe with some patience and attention, interest, to not judge that one has just judged. That's the first step, maybe, to see judgment without judgment, to see the close or seemingly inextricable link of perception with judgment, and not judge that as unfortunate, bad, undesirable. I should get rid of this judgment, because then the mind doesn't remain open to listen. Also to what else is there beside the judgment. Mourning dove, calling. And then the question was, well, could it come quicker and quicker, this perception of the judgment, so that it's seen almost instantly as it has happened, to see it quickly, so the perception can be fresh without judgment. In this seeing of the judgment as a fresh perception. Of course, if the mind is in a state of openness, which means it's quiet. That's really what an open mind is. It's a quiet mind. The energy not traveling in all the previous reactions and memories and anticipations and expectations and commandments and precepts. The energy just simply listening, simply, openly, innocently, like a newborn baby. Then in that there is no judgment. It doesn't have to be seen or dissolved. It's not there. In such an open listening, like that. But the questioner went further than that, wondering whether in this wanting to have this perception without judgment, there was a new goal to be attained, setting up something to achieve, and back in our conditioned rut of needing to become better or perfect. Is there a fine line, a fine difference between wondering, can there be a perception without judgment, and really interested in it, not knowing what the answer is, and not setting up a goal for myself that this is what I should be, which fits in with my conditioning to be perfect. If this is indeed my conditioning, not everybody's conditioning is that, but we all have some of that. Some more, some others. So is it possible to really wonder about our constant judging and begin to observe it out of curiosity and interest, and begin to see more of the complexities about it, the depth of it, how this separates us from others. Partly we feel better if we judge others. We feel superior and can, with that, alleviate our own feelings of inferiority by judging others as yet inferior, more inferior, and then feel better. All of this will reveal itself to a curious inquiry, to someone who is interested. Not the goal of no judging, but interest in judgment, what it is, what it does, what it prevents us from doing, and what its fringe benefits are for the personality. That's different from setting up the goal of becoming the non-judging, enlightened person, which is idea, a new precept, which then make it conflicting to see judgment time and time again. And when it becomes frustrated, I still am not getting any place. I'm not making any progress. I'm still judging. And the energy going into frustration and conflict, down on oneself and pushing oneself toward an idea. It's all open to inspection. Nothing that is not worthy of being wondered about and looked at. Not just superficially, but in depth, by sticking with a question and allowing it to unravel what before was just a dark knot. I went to a meditation retreat where a teacher recommended that we practice sending loving kindness to others. Now I am beginning to question whether this practice too reinforces the sense of myself being separate, me sending something to others out there, and of course me being good in doing that. It's amazing how everything fits together, doesn't it? Many people have told me about this practice and have found it very alleviating of feelings of hatred towards somebody, to turn this around and send thoughts of loving kindness to a person one dislikes thoroughly. Actually, I'm just looking around. I've never done it. Of course, I've not been given that practice ever either. But I've never. If I thoroughly dislike someone, get irritated by this person, upset, the mind keeps going back to this. What I need to do is look into the whole thing. What's going on here? Why do I get so irritated over this person? What is it that this person triggers in me, sets off? Why can't I just be in the presence of this person and not be irritated? And then maybe one could imagine that and let the memories trigger responses and look at them. Because here there's a spacious field of quietness to look. This is how I've worked and work with this. It was interesting to me, this person, without my having said anything to this effect, wondered herself, what am I doing? Am I reinforcing this feeling of separation? Because she said, when there's love, it's there. You don't have to send it any place, it's there. And in a state of lovingness or loving kindness, there's no feeling of distance between you and me, between me and somebody on the other side of this earth ball. There's no distance. We're one human family, one human consciousness. That's very clear, such a moment. And if love arises wherever, it's there to be touched by anyone. And the thought of me having to do something is quiet. It's not active. Me is quiet. So everyone finding out for themselves. And we can share. It's interesting. Question together. When I asked, what am I? There wasn't really any answer, except all the ideas I have about myself. There was nothing else but ideas and images. It made me sad. I cried. I've always wanted to be something. I have wanted to have a teacher who leads me to enlightenment. I've wanted to be this teacher's student of spiritual matters, a searcher for the truth. And now all of that seemed denied, disappeared, and what was left? Or what is left? What is left? When we see that all of the ideas we have about ourselves are in fact ideas and not really in touch with what is livingly breathing, walking, thinking, palpitating this instant. Why is it sad when all of our fantasies about teachers and students, spiritual matters, enlightenment, being this, being that, when that is swept away? Then what are we? Is a thought quickly jumping in there and saying, now you're nothing. See what you get? Nothing. If I had a teacher left, he would tell me what I am and what I will become. To wonder about the truth, we don't have to be anything to do that. It happens on its own. One doesn't have to become a searcher, a seeker, but we love to describe ourselves as seekers. Because then we've left now all the other categories of being aspiring up in the political ladder or the industrial or becoming this or that, and now we are a seeker of spiritual matters or spiritual truth. It sounds so good, and the good sound does not just remain a good sound. The whole body vibrates with the sound and feels energetic. But can't there be wondering about the truth and looking and listening without becoming a truth seeker? It's a good question to ask. One woman told me once she loves to paint. Had wanted all her life. Finally, she got enough money and a place so she could start painting. But she said, I'm very careful not telling myself I'm a painter. I just love to paint. Or sculpt. But it becomes tricky when one becomes a sculptor, doesn't it? Or a novelist, or a writer, or this or that. Not that one doesn't sometimes need to say this or write it on a passport. Because for some reason they want to know what we are. as you write this, do you feel good, painter? What if you have to write unemployed? No one feels crummy, down on oneself. But we're all just human beings, we're breathers. Above all, maybe we're thinkers. So to question that, the subtle difference between painting or thinking or being a thinker. I'm the thinker of my thoughts. There's a famous sculpture of the thinker by Rodin. Steeped in thought. At the workshops at the Zen Center, the teacher there had two big enlargements. One of Rodin's thinker, steeped all thinking, rounded back, and one of a Buddha, straight back. Those two posters went everywhere. We traveled through Europe. Each workshop had those two posters. They were very impressive to people. Instead of being a thinker, I could become a Buddha. Now you have the choice. But who wants to be this crumpled up being? So watch it when something is swept away, when there's just nothing there. What makes for the sadness? Whether there isn't, sure as anything, a thought about it. Nothing? I'm nothing? Oh my God. So to watch thought, not to give up, not to pause in it. Because to be nothing is a tremendous relief. It's like climbing out of the shell, exposed to the air, and wind and sunshine, and green grasses, people who are not threatening, because I don't want anything of them. And so I see them clearer in terms of what they really are, not what I want of them or what I am afraid they may do to me. Now, this is not a state that lasts forever after. This is not painting a picture of perfection that one should now aim at attaining. It happens on its own to human beings, whether they go to retreats or not. Suddenly, a realization that we're nothing, and that everything is functioning on its own in a mysterious way. And once this insight has been there, even if the everyday mind may return, having seen that once does something to us. Unless it's buried, it's made by thought, it's made to look threatening, or thought elaborating on it and trying to rationalize it. That's a bad insight. I'm looking at my relationship to my children. I seem to give more space and openness to the children I teach in school than my own. Can we look at that? I don't remember verbatim what was said, but it was sort of the spirit of it. I think anyone who has children can relate to this, even though they may not be a school teacher. Very, very difficult to have children. One doesn't fathom how difficult it is until one has them. Until one has them, one wants them. One woman told me, I don't want to send out another Christmas card, just my husband and me. All my friends have these cards, husband, wife, and then the baby and the older brother or something. And it's about time we also send Christmas. She really said that. I'm not inventing it. And not too long ago, somebody who has wanted children very badly, we used to talk about it. I usually sound a warning to people about this. I'm very frank about this, about how I feel. The difficulty of living with children, so-called raising children, all the ideas we have, and the world that these children are born into. So we had talked about this, both with her and her husband. And now that 2 children are there, a little while ago she said, it's so difficult, why didn't anybody ever tell me about it? Not that she doesn't love her children, we all love our children. Whatever that means. One person says, I love them, but I don't like them. It's not the first time a person who is a teacher mentions this, has seen this, and says it honestly. It's easier for me to be with the children. As a matter of fact, I love to get out of the house to my school children, away from these kids. Because children are incredibly demanding. More so because they get very little time from us. Very, very little time for our children these days. Not how it used to be, and none of us lived at those times where parents in primitive tribes, societies don't have much to do, and the children are there and they participate. There's a lot of leisure time. They learn the things that the adults do is not, don't do this, you can't drive the tractor, you're too young, or we have a new riding mower, and our grandson is going to come and visit. And he's already asked over the phone if he could ride that new riding mower. It's going to be a problem, I know. To say no to him. Because it's dangerous, it is dangerous. But primitive people don't have riding mowers. The way they harvest, the children can participate in. Now we're off to work and the kids off to school or into a daycare center. What happens to them at a daycare center? We don't know. We hope for the best. And all of the mothers whom I ask and fathers, they always, that I recall, say, oh, they love it. So how the little time that we have with our children, are we there? And the time that's just spent maybe doing chores together, or dishes, or while there's some things have to be done, are we sort of, how are we with them? To listen, how many times a day or how often a minute do we correct them, tell them don't do it this way, do it that way? Our irritation which we bring home from the office, does that spill over into the children? And the children's irritation with the school, does that spill over to the parents? How do we meet each other, parents and children? I've often told about this man who came to retreat in Germany. He says, I'm about to have a child, and I'm very, very gravely serious about this responsibility that soon I will be a father. Can you say something to me, something helpful, advice? And the only thing that occurred to say was, "Don't be a father." It's heavy with duties, this concept of father, isn't it? And the fears. Is he going to be good and efficient, and are their children going to be behaving? And I went through all of this. The first time that our son hit hard a neighbor's child, I almost died. There was something I couldn't control. Couldn't be there all the time preventing him from hitting somebody. It was very, very hard, because I didn't hit children that I remember. I was very tender, or how you say, timid, always trying to be good. So how are we with our children? Distant as parents who have to bring up these kids? Or is there, because there are responsibilities that we have, obviously. And I'm not talking of neglect or disinterest, but can we be on an equal level? Is that possible? Or is this dream, fantasy? I can with our grandchildren. I couldn't with my son. To really be on the same level. Not think of oneself as the grandmother or the mother who knows better, but sort of enter into the same state of mind. Is that possible? Because as grandmother, you have your children, grandchildren, very brief period of time. But for a brief period of time, as sort of a vacation for both father, mother, and children, to be on the same level with each other. I don't know how to express it, but maybe you can look for yourself. Not lording it over each other, controlling each other, but really reflecting understanding of each other. And it's been very good feedback with the grandchildren. When we're alone with the grandchildren, they don't do all this misbehaving that they do with their parents. There's no access to grind. Nothing to fight if you don't lord it over the child. Of course, he may not want to go to bed, or she. Well, is it reasonable that the child stay up? Or maybe go to bed early together. That's why we have no problems. We go to bed early. So we all go in together. Well, everybody can check this out. The first step is, and the newness is to question it, to look at it. Not just to take for granted, I figured this all out, this is how it's going to be, I found it's the best, but to be open, not rigid, flexible, and yet still retain a sense of, as a parent, I don't know, of what? What is good for the future for this child? Do we know? Do we know about the future? Do we know about the present? Or constantly preparing for a future which will never arrive. It always changes, but never here, now, alone and with our children, husband, wife, companions. You talked about the people building a tower without windows. And the impossibility of bringing light inside by bagging it outside. The person said, my life is such a dark tower, my daily life is such a dark tower. That's why I wondered if I could bring some light along from here. Well, it's clear. Bagging it outside, dumping it just doesn't work. That's very clear. What will bring light into the dark tower? To build some windows, door, skylight. So, is it possible in our daily dark life, darkness here meaning not attentive, not aware, just running on automatic, reacting, judging, creating enemies, siding with the allies, all of this stuff we've talked about. To open a window now and then, or the door, more light comes through the door, but the most light is if we step outside of that tower altogether. Opening the window is like a moment of awareness. And there's a crucial moment in our life, our daily life, a moment of attention, becoming aware of what is just going on or what just went on. The thoughts are still reverberating in the memory. The body is manifesting the emotion that's triggered by the thoughts. A moment of awareness, maybe not much emotion. Some person say, I don't feel much at all. I become aware, but I don't feel much. So whatever, a moment of awareness. And the wind in the trees, is that there? All the sounds, inside and out, are they there at a moment of awareness? It's such a crucial moment, no matter how long or short. It's like opening a window. Or at this crucial moment of awareness, does thought immediately rattle on, I should have been aware. I'm a hopeless case, here I've been thinking again for hours. And it goes on, you see, it goes on. This moment, the window's whoop, whoop, it's closed again. And on with about how I am, or how others are, or whatever. So, if there's a moment of attention, not to expect the spectacular, not to expect anything, just what's there. It's very ordinary, very simple. It's just a moment of attention. Breathing, chirping, winding, palpitating. Seeing whatever's in front of one. One Zen teacher coming back from China to Japan said, I learned tremendously in China. My eyes are horizontal and my nose is vertical. You could say, but what about what you just said? Stepping out of the tower altogether. Is that possible? Without this becoming a goal, is it possible that the tower isn't there? Well, we've talked about it, and it happens to human beings. Has happened to them since they've been around. And if they write, they have left records of it. But the record is not the state of no dark tower, just what's there, without any enclosure of past, present, future. what I was and what very likely I'm going to be and my children are going to be. That thought system, that thought/emotion system at ease, quiet, and energy just in listening. And I don't mean, one person told me, there was such a moment of nothing, stillness, nobody there, but there wasn't the energy you talk about. So I've got to be careful about everything I say. Because what does one imagine? Fireworks? The energy is in the quietness, in the quiet listening, in the quietness permeating everything, including this organism which is breathing, blood circulating, immune system, liver, whatever all is functioning. The trees are cracking. We're just so out of touch with what's going on around us. What moves the tree? You can imagine a tree like this to sway back and forth, the energy it takes. I read it takes the energy equivalent to pushing 450 pounds for one grass blade to push through the earth in spring, or now in summer. 450 pounds for one grass blade to push through. But it's not a noisy energy, it's quiet. Like the breathing, like the birds and wind. And people sitting together, listening together, quietly, simply. Where's the dark tower? And if one finds oneself in it, then to examine it, to look at it, to feel it, brick by brick. All the whole thing. What is it? This enclosure in which we live, or we think we live. We will end here for today.